Broads Media.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Broads. I want to start this show off with a little quote, okay? And this quote happens to be by one DeMarcus Lawrence of the Dallas Cowboys. And this describes perfectly how the rest of the league views this fragile Eagles squad, okay? You hit a motherfucker in the face over and over and over and over again until they quit. And when they quit, hit them again and again and again. I think you realized, if you are watching the 49ers, if you're watching the Dallas Cowboys play against the Eagles, whoa, you can break them. And that's exactly how this Eagles team looks. They look broken. And now a lot of that is more than just their physicality, because they're getting outmanned, they're getting manhandled, outworked, all of it. The other team wants it more than them. But it's also schematically. Okay, you now have players in the locker room texting Derek Gunn to get out their voice that this offense just isn't working. Plays are taking too long to develop. Look at how the Cowboys get the football out quickly. There's only one reason why you use the media if you're in the room. Okay, you saw it before with Alshon Jeffrey, with Josina Anderson. The moment you're discussing anything with Derek Gunn, it's because you're trying to get out what's wrong inside those walls at the NovaCare complex. And that's now the first time under the Nick Sirianni era that we may have people questioning him on the team. That's the first thing that went off in my brain is, alrighty, can Sirianni hold it together? Can he make sure that this team, when handling adversity, doesn't crack so bad that now we see a piss-poor losing streak against teams that they should absolutely beat? Everyone talks about controlling their own destiny. Not if they play like this. They're not beating Seattle with or without Geno Smith if they don't have any work ethic, okay? Now, listen to this. This is Shane Haff, and I apologize if I am pronouncing his last name wrong, of Bleeding Green Nation. All right, and I'm not Mr. Analytics. I'm not Mr. Every single little stat out there. Let's try and find an angle that fully fits my narrative. But in regards to how difficult it is right now for Jalen Hurts and some of these skill position players, even though you have to hold on to the football, dude. Yo, AJ, if you're going to call Gilmore old and you're going to chirp him throughout the game, the last thing you can do is give 30% effort and let him rip the ball out of your hands that easily. If you're going to talk, you better at least show up and work your ass off instead of going through the motions, lollygagging around. I'm A.J. Brown. I could do whatever I want. It's a disgrace. But Hurts' expected completion percentage is 61.6%, which is the second lowest in the entire league. Hurts' completion percentage over expectation is plus 4.9%, which is the highest in the NFL. What does this mean? Essentially, the offense is asking Jalen Hurts to make the most insane, hardest throws compared to the rest of the league. And believe it or not, with Devontae Smith, with A.J. Brown, looking at the full body of work, they've actually exceeded expectations based off of some of these play designs and go deep. And, you know, it's like every single play is either a horrendous wide receiver screen, a QB draw where Jalen Hurts takes the ball up the middle, or it's a long, deep shot to AJ and you're just asking him to go win a one-on-one matchup, which isn't a problem sometimes. When it's your entire identity, it sucks, and there's never anything easy. And you can't just target and hone down on three guys, Goddard, AJ, and Devontae. We have to operate as as an entire unit. It's complementary football. In the last show, I tried to look for the right word, and I think I said cohesive. I knew it started with the C. I just went along with it. No, it wasn't cohesive. It was complementary. And I was describing how the defense and the offense need to work together. And right now, they're both not doing their job, and that's how you get dominated every single week when you see good opponents. But it's got to be complementary, and that also means that it needs to be the entire offense, whether it's Quez, whether it's OZ, whether it's anybody else. And, I'm not saying that I want them to get these massive amount of targets, but just in regards to you're making it so much harder because in scheme, in design, you're telling me that you can't scheme things open and then Zacchaeus is wide open without anybody near him. There's no such thing as a defender within 5 yards. You can't do that. You can't do that with AJ. You can't do that with Devontae. And look, I just want to verify here that I'm not begging for more Quez Watkins. I know he's not a special talent. I'm just saying I think they're going overboard, and it's a huge reach that the targets are only going to a couple of guys. You have to be complimentary and have a bunch of your players at least be an option, because now you're making it extremely easier for the opposition to know that we really only have to pay attention to just a handful of guys, and I think that that's been on the full display. I can't believe now at this rate we are watching players reach out to media so their voice can be heard. That is step one in okay? It doesn't mean it's absolutely going to flop and it's an automatic disaster. I'm telling you, it's the first step to possibly leaning that way. With all of that said, and you can tell that I'm angry with the coaching staff. You could tell that I'm pissed with a lot of what we have here right now with the coordinators too. What we can't do, and I think that idiot who went down to the NovaCare complex to put a sign saying fire Sean Desai so everyone sees it when they go park, and putting out trash cans calling Darius Slay no play Slay and all. I use this platform to rant all the time. I call players out nonstop. But to actually go there and to have them see if when you just sit out there as they're going to work, going to practice, I thought that was a loser thing to do. I think that's going completely overboard. And I don't like that Darius Slay leans into it. What bothers me about the Slay thing, not so much changing his Twitter picture to the trash can, but whenever he has a game, let's say the Eagles get destroyed, which they have been doing. It sucks. I'm watching DeVito and the New York Giants. Not that I ever want to be in a position where the New York Giants are, but they're having fun. They got the celebration going. Hodgson catches an amazing pass in the back of the end zone. DeVito's agent wearing the hat and looking like a typical what you would think a mobster would look like. They're having fun. They're enjoying this. They're actually entertaining right now. I'm actually kind of weirdly enjoying their story, even though I hate the New York Giants, right? And I'm crying watching the Eagles right now. I don't want to flip storylines here. I'd rather be in the conversation of can you still snag the number one seed compared to a team that was a 2-win team prior to rolling off 3 straight. But my point is, that was fun football. I forget what fun football is. Forget what it is. But Slay, when a game is over and you lose by 20 plus, okay, and the 2 biggest game on your schedules roll around and you showed up flat and the entire team sucked. And when I say you, I'm not specifically saying you, Slay. I'm saying you, the crest, the Eagles logo. I don't care at the end of the game that you're going to retweet a graphic that says that you had 2 pass breakups and targeted 4 times with 0 catches or 1 catch. I don't care. Your team just lost by 20. It says to me that you are being selfish, and I know all you can control is what you did. But just stay away. Now's not the time. You have to read the room. Yeah, we get it. You had a couple past breakups. The team got killed by the Cowboys on the road. And now the entire narrative changes. And now the NFC standings, all the graphics, the 49ers, where are the Cowboys? Where are the Eagles? What's left? And I know they have a favorable schedule. And I don't anticipate the Cowboys winning off the rest and just winning the rest of the way and all that stuff. I don't. They have some tough teams that they have to participate against. I don't care, Slay. I don't care. I don't care. And I think it just screams selfish. Even though I do think he is a team guy, locker room presence, funny, goofy, keeps it light. You do need that. It's overboard on what he's doing to try and defend himself. It shouldn't matter what Tommy123 at hotmail.com cares. Okay? It just shouldn't. But for some reason, he puts a ton of stock into that, and I don't know. Whatever. You had limited stuff for Shaq Leonard, and Morrow's out there still. Which opens up a whole nother discussion about Howie Roseman. Do I want to get into that today, though, or are we still more in the raw, I can't believe we're even in this predicament mode? Because trust me, as a Howie Roseman defender for a long period of time, he's not above criticism, okay? And I think I could probably hold this one in the holster for an entire show because he failed the defense. You could actually sell me that Sean Desai might not be as good as we thought he was earlier when you see some of his history and you see some of maybe where the stats were with some of his other stops in his career. Maybe Sean Desai isn't as flashy, but I do know that these players in the secondary, and they should not be out there as much as they are, and I don't know if you have many other options currently because of the way the roster was built, because they're super thin in areas. This pass rush isn't getting home, and you're built with your pass rush. Why isn't the pass rush getting home? Because other teams know that you can expose the linebackers. You can expose the secondary. The corners are getting old. Well, why do you have old corners? Well, maybe because you never look to draft corners high in the first round. They always neglect it because they want to do other things. Well, right now that's costing you because you pay a lot of money for a Bradbury who has one good season and then falls off a cliff. But is he falling off a cliff because of the way Sean Desai has the defense playing? Or is he falling off a cliff because he's in his 30 plus and there was a reason why that Bradbury was available and the Giants made a decision and maybe they saw something we didn't see, and then he did have some inspiration, I guess, to prove to the world that he could hang, and then all of a sudden there's a major dip and he looks like a fraud right now. Why do you have to commit to that? Well, it's because of the way Howie Roseman elects to go. He does a lot of great things. That doesn't mean that I think he should be fired. I think that's where we cross the line a lot of times, showing displeasure and being upset with certain people because they're not playing well or because they're not coaching well. That doesn't mean automatic get him out of here. It means do better. It means do your job, right? Come on. It doesn't have to be to such an extreme. We're not firing Brian Johnson right now. We're not firing Sean Desai. It's not happening. And honestly, I'm starting to give more of a free pass to Brian Johnson because I'm a believer, and this is Sirianni. I think this is fully Sirianni, and it's speculation. But this offense, when someone this is why I feel that way. Actually, let me tell you about my friends over at TickPick first. I'll tell you that, and then we'll go to the Anytime Hotline to get some of your reaction as well. If you're looking to go to a game, right, Christmas is coming up. Maybe you get a loved one, cousins, family members, your significant other, maybe the kids. Let's say you get them tickets to go to a game at the Wells Fargo Center. Watch the Sixers, watch the Flyers, go to a concert possibly. Well, what if I told you TickPick is giving you $10 off your purchase when you sign up with promo code BRODES. There's a link down below in the description, and when you click that link, my code is automatically activated, so you get those $10 if you spend over $99. And they have the best prices guaranteed. Their ticket prices will beat any of the major competing marketplaces, and they are so confident about it, they guarantee it. If you find the same seats elsewhere at a better price than TickPick, you get 110% of the price difference in form of TickPick credit. And there's also upfront pricing. So So no more doing the math in your head to prepare for how much extra you plan on spending on top of the listed price on other sites, because the price you see on TickPick is the price you'll pay at checkout, period. End of story. We got they have no added service fees, hidden fees, or otherwise. Make sure you join the TickPick family down below. Okay, so if it was Brian Johnson and he was pulling all the cards and this was him, one, it wouldn't make much sense, because when you have an offensive-minded head coach, he is going to be the one that has 90% of the game plan in his fingertips. Like, it's his. You are an offensive-minded coach. Just because you play the CEO card doesn't mean now all of a sudden you just let the offensive coordinator do whatever the hell he wants to do. No. There is a lot of talks happening behind the scenes and a lot of talks in those meetings about how Sirianni wants to do it, and Brian Johnson's role is to do what Nick Sirianni wants to do with his offense, if that makes sense. He's just an extension of Sirianni. So let's say, though, that it wasn't that way, and Brian Johnson had this freedom, and it's his way, and he gets to choose all the decisions, and he's the one that's picking everything he wants to pick on the sidelines throughout the four quarters. Well, if this is what we are getting, at some point, Sirianni would have to step in. It would have to happen. Just like last year, we realized that it wasn't going very good with Sirianni, so it was known that he took a step back and Shane Steichen had the full go at it, and he was able to be a little bit more Shane Steichen, if you will. He got to grab on to something because it wasn't working. But we never really got that this year, right? Why didn't we get that? Because it's been Sirianni the whole way. It's been Sirianni the whole way, and I think because Brian Johnson is new at this, because he's raw at this, maybe because they don't have a lot of faith in him. And that doesn't mean that Brian Johnson is great. I don't know. Maybe he isn't as good as we expected, but there's a lot for him to grow. I don't think he's anywhere near a polished OC and the best OC that he can be, and there's a lot of ways that I can look at that. I could say, yo, Howie, going back to the Howie thing, now's not the time to play games. You have a championship caliber roster right now. It's not time to play the long game with the coordinator. What you need to do is get a full-on, I'm ready to be an OC right now guy, because we have to win. It's not, well, there's baby steps involved. No one cares if this team gets to an NFC championship game, but we look at the growth of Brian Johnson as something to hold our hat on. It's not a quarterback position, right? You can go 9-8, lose in the first round of the postseason, and be excited for the growth of a QB. It's not how this works. Right now, it's I need the right guy in. So if he's raw and has to take a little bit more to develop, then maybe he should still be a quarterback's coach. And did Jalen Hurts have say because of his relationship with Brian Johnson and how close he is with the family? Brian Johnson, that is, with the Hurts family? It's very possible. But because there's been no shift, I think it's been the head coach the whole way, and they don't trust Johnson to have that element right now and to dig into his bag of tricks, so they're just staying put with the Sirianni life. Full speculation, but that's sort of how I'm reading this vibe currently, which sucks, because Sirianni doesn't seem to be a creative, strategic man. Very bland, very vanilla, very blah. Everything's forced, always looking for the home run. You know they emphasize the big play, and you know they emphasize the explosiveness. Well, maybe they take it too far to the extreme, where they're asking Jalen Hurts to stand in the pocket, gun it downfield, and force something to A.J. Brown, because, well, if there's one explosive play out of every 5 downs, then maybe that tells them analytically that this is going to work, right? Something stupid like that. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some dumbass number that reflects something like that. Once again, I'm just spitballing here, and I'm just talking out loud, but this is what happens when you lose 2 straight games and you look as miserable as you do. And I don't want to hear that they're 10-1 before these 2 games, so relax. No. this is not just losing games. You now don't have pride. You're not losing a game 21-20 and you look like a legitimate competitor and you just happen to lose a hard-fought battle. There is a way to lose respectfully. Now, we'll pick apart what needed to change to maybe have a different outcome. All right, it's not okay to lose, but there's something that you can at least respect with their philosophy, their effort, their compete level. They're getting ran off the field and embarrassed like they don't even deserve to be a legitimate contender and a legitimate talking point on what team can win a championship. Like it's crazy that we've fallen this far. And now you have people questioning Jalen Hurts' demeanor. I don't like the way that he looks on the sidelines. I don't like the way that he has his shoulder slumped. He's different. He's different. He doesn't ride the high super high. He doesn't ride the low super low normally. When he fumbled that ball, and that's totally unacceptable by him, you see the Dallas Cowboys go down and score. Now they get a touchdown, and your defense is still on the whole. You can move through them like warm butter, just like 6 consecutive touchdown drives against San Fran. You roll into the next game, and it's absolutely happening right from the rip again. There's no sort of, okay, at least they were able to do their job. No, they couldn't do their job to save their lives, and it's so brutal. So brutal. And for you to fumble, it was a killer. And I think everybody on the sideline sort of slumped. Oh, man, here we go. He's turning the ball over way too much. He's not playing good. But when he fumbled that ball, you could see the sadness. You could see the disappointment. We're not used to seeing him ride the lows that low. Well, he did then. I don't think he was in control, which tells you that there's a lot of emotions right now that they're having a difficult time expressing or holding in. When do you hold it in? When do you let that happen, right? When do you let the expression show? Do you show them? Do you not show them? A.J. Brown said it was shown in the locker room, and we'd see on Sunday. Okay. Let's go to the phones. We'll start off with Amadeo. Let's get to Amadeo and his thoughts.
Okay. Now, I was, willing, slightly willing to let last week, just be, okay, it was a long, stretch of a tough schedule and all that stuff. Okay, they'll bounce back against Dallas. Well, now that you put the same type of performance up the second week in a row against the big opponents, now that's a pattern where you allow, 10, 11 straight drives in the past 2 games for the opposing team to score? That's an issue. When you cannot score a touchdown on offense, that's an issue. When your 2 best receivers fumble the ball 3 times, that's an issue. When your only touchdown is by Jalen Carter, that's an issue. Everything is an issue. And honestly, if you are still going through the motions of the entire season and you still haven't fully put it together, the Eagles are not as good as we think they are. They're just not. They're not. That is the bottom line. They're not as good as we think they are. It's ridiculous. 2 weeks. They put up this type of performance. I don't care about the tough schedule anymore. This is more than that. They're getting their asses handed to them.
I love the call, Amadeo. I know you call in a lot, and I think that might have been your best call that you've had. You nailed a lot of points. The whole putting it together thing. Okay, if you're now at week, 13, 14, 15, whatever week it is, and you're still saying, I don't know if we played our best game yet, I think you have. I think your best game just isn't as good as what we all maybe thought your best game was. That's what it comes down to. Because guess what? It's probably nearly impossible to play that many games and not once you haven't. No, maybe your best game was Miami. Okay? Maybe your best game was Miami, and I don't think that that's a bad best game, but my problem is why can't we get that more often? Why was it just that? And then really against better opponents, it was never really there. You know, and I see others trying to justify. Don't lose sight of beating Kansas City. Don't lose sight of beating the Buffalo Bills. And I'm not taking anything away from that. But if you are a Super Bowl contender, I cannot say that just because you had those good wins that this is acceptable. I am remembering how great of a win you had against Kansas City. And I'm not even going to factor in the fact that Kansas City probably should have won if they didn't drop a pass. And the Buffalo Bills in overtime probably should have won if there wasn't communication with Josh Allen and the receiver, and it was a wide open touchdown and it didn't happen. And then here's Jalen Hurts and the offense. Without that even being considered, good wins by the Eagles. They don't automatically become bad wins. But that doesn't mean that this is okay. It doesn't mean that this is okay whatsoever. This is not okay. It is not okay. Both things can be true. And I'm even seeing some stats out there about this offense and points per game. And I haven't been able to work with Elliott Shore-Parks yet, but I'm super excited too. I did get to meet a lot of the people over there at WIP now that I've been there for a couple weeks. But one of the things he tweeted out, there's a few that I agree with, a few that I disagree with. And he tweeted out the 2023 Eagles offense. And he laid out the points per game is 6th. The points per drive is 4th. The yards per game is 8th. First downs, 3rd. Third down offense, 3rd. Red zone offense, 10th. Turnovers, 18th. Brian Johnson doesn't deserve the level of criticism he's getting. I've always said that Brian Johnson got too much hate. But those numbers don't tell enough of the story, okay? Because it's too hard. Like, this offense is too hard. Those numbers should be better with A.J. Devontae, Dallas Goedert, DeAndre Swift, this offensive line, and Jalen Hurts. You're asking Jalen Hurts to make high difficulty plays way too often. It's too aggressive. You're force-feeding things into the offense instead of having it be organic. When was the last time you saw a concept have someone wide open just by design, just by having the right counter move and the whole motion thing, right? Like, oh, we don't motion just to motion. Does anybody motion just to motion? Or are they motioning because it's now deceiving and it's deceptive and there's miscommunication on the back end of the other team? I just watched it happen to the Eagles with Bradbury and all these new faces. It's not just doing it to doing it for doing it. It's doing something. There's a cause and an effect. There's a benefit that you can have by utilizing this motion. So while the number, and a lot of those numbers, there's not a lot of good teams in the NFL. There's not a lot of good teams in the NFL. There's not a lot of good quarterback play in the NFL. So I don't want to compare it to Johnny, Joe, and Smith on a team that stinks. I don't care what their offense does. I'm trying to compete with the 49ers and the Cowboys because in the NFC, that's who's here. That's what's in front of us. Those two teams. And so far, I've been shown that they can't. So some of these numbers by either Sirianni, he says Brian Johnson, but I think Sirianni deserves more of the blame right now than Brian Johnson, because if it was Johnson and he didn't do anything about it, then shame on you. That's on you. That's on the head coach. That's on the offensive-minded head coach that knows that this is unacceptable. That means he's allowing this to keep going. Whatever way it is, whether it's Sirianni the whole time or Brian Johnson does have it and Sirianni does nothing about it, regardless, it's not good enough. And then at some point, it goes up the chain to Sirianni being the culprit. That's how my eyes see it. Back to the phones.
Hey, bros, I know this is the very L's for the Eagles. I know there's 5 minutes left, but I'm going to call now. Yeah, I know everyone's pointing fingers at the receivers and Jalen Hurts for Brian Johnson literally rubbing butter on their hands before the game because they cannot hold on to the ball for the life of me. But I think, honestly, my takeaway to this game is our defensive coordinator needs to be fired on the spot. And the main reason why is because how much of a dumbass he is. I don't know why you're putting a nickel on CeeDee Lamb every single play. It's CeeDee Lamb. Use Bradbury or use, I don't know, use Bradbury or use Slay. Couldn't think of him in the moment. But This is going to be
I'm not telling you I loved everything with CeeDee Lamb, but there's a lot here, right? Like, it depends what plays you're talking about, lined up in the slot. Well, if he's lined up in the slot, I get it. You can have Slay cover him the whole time and move around and do whatever. Bradbury's not an obvious answer because Bradbury would get annihilated by a lot of these receivers out there. They don't really have many options. That's what it is, unfortunately. They do not have many options to go to, and I think this is a bigger issue, which is the Howie Roseman thing. Those fumbles, okay, going back to that Giants game that happened last night on Monday Night Football, I paid way more attention to the Giants-Packers than I did Tennessee-Miami. Saquon Barkley tripped and fumbled by mistake, wasn't touched, and he was running down the right sideline. He was going full speed. He kind of lost his footing, and it was a fluky fumble. Fluky fumbles are different than what happened out there. Those Cowboys, they forced those fumbles to happen. And that makes it even more difficult for me to kind of digest. You let them take the ball. You let them steal your soul. You did. That's what happened. They stole your soul. They're forcing those fumbles. Hurts, getting it punched out. Like, they just wanted it so much more than you. So much. You can't accept that. You cannot accept that. It's killing me. It really is. All right, everybody. Those are my thoughts today. We'll see how it changes throughout the week. I ended last show with something very similar, and I'll end this show, if you make it this far, with the same exact news. My wife is set to get induced Thursday to have our baby girl. Could happen before, could happen Thursday. Just in regards to shows being uploaded, bros, where are you? What's happening? Well, that's what's happening this week. So there's a chance I'm running my ass to the hospital and I'm not around in my studio depending on what's happening with the birth of the baby. So I'm just giving you a little heads up there. But I appreciate all you guys. I love you to death. You're the greatest in the world. Appreciate you. We'll be talking very, very soon.